Claude Jarman Jr. was that special actor who brought a childlike innocence to his first film role, that of Jody Baxter in the 1946 classic The Yearling. That childlike quality was real because Claude was only 10 years old when director Clarence Brown, of National Velvet fame, plucked him out of his fifth-grade class in Nashville, Tennessee. For his performance of The Yearling, Claude received a special, miniature Academy Award. Claude was born September 27, 1934 in Nashville, Tennessee, and died of natural causes January the 12th, 2025 in Kentfield, California. He was 90 years old. During the COVID pandemic, I was fortunate to do a remote Zoom interview with Claude from his home in San Francisco, November 2020. Yep, that's right in the middle of the pandemic. We got together in person several times after that, spending time together at film festivals and with his dear friend of 70 years, Patrick Wayne. I even set up an interview with the two of them together, discussing their 1950 film, Rio Grande. What a thrill that was for me and the Pet House at the Lone Pine Film Festival. Our interview was followed by a screening of the film. What could be better? I was even able to go horseback riding with Claude's wife, Catherine, in the Alabama hills of Lone Pine. We had a terrific time wandering through those great locations. That interview with Patrick and more with Claude are available to view on our A Word on Westerns YouTube channel. Don't miss them. As you'll see from our initial Zooming conversation that's coming up, Claude was just a phenomenal person who worked during the last days of the MGM studio system. That was the tail end of Hollywood's golden age. In fact, Claude wrote a book entitled My Life in the Final Days of Hollywood. Now, prepare to reminisce with Claude as he shares stories of what it was like to be whisked away from elementary school, go to Hollywood, and then spend months in the Florida heat shooting a movie that became a classic, The Yearling. Thanks, Claude, for your generosity, humor, and friendship. Rest in peace, my friend.
The Yearling. Come along with Jody on a thrilling hunt for a wild bear. And discover a baby deer deep in the forest. A little pet all your own.
Hi, I'm Rob Ward, and we are very fortunate today to have somebody who has been in classic movies, not one, not two, 3, 4, you name it, and he was in them all. The most important, perhaps, was his very first, and I'm talking about Claude Jarman Jr. Claude, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Well, you're here up in Northern California, and I'm down here. We're doing a Zoom, which
It's the ways of the world today.
I think this is the new norm, and it's a thrill to meet you. I was looking forward to doing an interview with you, and not just Lone Pine at that film festival, but at the Williamsburg Nostalgia Festival. But here we are doing a one-on-one, so I thank you for helping us set this up.
Okay.
Let me ask you about The Yearling. I'm from Florida, and I graduated from Stetson University near where The Yearling was shot in Ocala. And when I saw that as a youngster, there's so much of it hit home for me. My mom was never that mean, but it was really a wonderful movie that still resonates with me and so many other people. How did you get that part?
Well, it was, it's interesting. The Yearling started out, the book came out, won the Pulitzer Prize in 1938, and MGM bought it, and they started to make it in 1930. 1938 or 39, with Spencer Tracy having the lead, and the young boy was somebody from Atlanta. But it was a production that had a lot of difficulties at the beginning. It was hot and humid. The deer was growing up. The kid grew up. Everything was really working against it. And I understand that Spencer Tracy hated the part. He didn't feel good in it. So they had Victor Fleming, who was coming off Gone with the Wind, so the top director in the world, and they shut it down, which was highly unusual. And then they revived it in 1945 because they still had a big investment in the production, and they asked Clarence Brown, who was then one of the top directors at MGM. He'd done a lot of the Garbo films. He had just done The Human Comedy. He did National Velvet with Elizabeth Taylor. So he had worked with animals and he worked with kids. So, well, okay, Clarence would be great for this. And so he took it on, and he decided that he wanted to play the lead of the young boy, someone from the South. He did not want a Hollywood. We're talking about Roddy McDowall or people like that. But he said, I will go find my Jody. He took a tour of the South, and he had a unique opportunity. He would go into a city. For example, he came into Nashville, and he immediately went to the Board of Education, and he talked to the head of the Board of Education, told him who he was, what he was looking for, and said, I would like to go look in some rooms, the schools or the fifth grade schools around the city. And if I see anyone I like, I'd like to be able to talk to them. And if I don't, no one will know that I was even here. And he came to my school on a Valentine's Day, February 14, and he saw me standing up, taking down Valentine's, I guess. And immediately called me to the office, wanted to talk to me. And it eventually went on, I'll try to cut it a little short, where he came out to the house and said who he was and would I be interested in going to Hollywood for a test. And of course, my parents, so there were a lot of issues that we had to deal with. But that's exactly what happened. My father and I went to California for a test. And what's really interesting was there were 3 or 4 other kids there. But Clarence Brown told my father, said, we don't need to take a test. He's the kid. We're going to use him. And so that was how it all came about. And he was the director, and so he chose me. And it was a very, very difficult film to shoot. It took almost a year. From the time we started in April until the following December. So you're looking at a year and a half before it ever came out.
Well, you're a tall string bean of a guy anyway. Now, were you growing as fast as the fawn, as the deer was growing, the yearling?
Yeah, I was growing, and I probably grew 4 or 5 inches, during that period. But it was really a very difficult time because when we were on location in Florida for 4 months, we worked basically 7 days a week. There was no fun any part of it. It was a difficult film to make.
But your dad was with you or your mother the whole time?
No, my father was with me, and then my mother and my sister came to California after we left Florida. We were on location from April to September in Florida, in Silver Springs, right near Ocala, and that's where we filmed it. It's funny because you mentioned that it made an impact on you. Someone else who always talked about it, and I used to hear it on TV, was Burt Reynolds, because he's from that part of the country, and he always talked about the yearling, which was kind of interesting. I never got to meet him, but he was always, referring to that as how it had an impact on him when he started to go into the movies.
Well, I know Bert was like me and all of us that grew up in Florida. We were barefoot all of the time and just running around like you were in the film. And I'm one of 4 kids, and we would drive the Airstream down to the Everglades and spend the weekend down there and swat mosquitoes. Were the bugs bad for you there in Ocala?
Oh yeah, it was it was brutal. But I was 10 years old. It was just part of life as far as I could tell. But the crew was having a hard time dealing with.
Did you ever have an inkling as a child before that happened that movies might be something that you would be able to get into?
Oh, I don't know. I was a total movie freak, though. I used to go to all the double features on Saturday, and And I also was very active in little theater groups. So I did have an interest in acting. It was something that, cascaded into something a lot more.
Well, the camera certainly loved you and your presence and the relationship that you had with Gregory Peck. I know a lot of people, for the people I hang around with, talk about the relationship that Johnny Crawford had with Chuck Connors on The Rifleman and how that was so important to them growing up. And your relationship with Gregory Peck, he always came across as a cold individual. What was he like off screen?
Oh, he was a wonderful guy. He basically was really, his career was just taking off. And he was, I forget how old he was. I think he was just 30 years old. So he was into it. He was uh, very kind, I would say I was in every scene that he was in. So we spent a lot of time together. He was a very kind man. In fact, we didn't see each other for a long time. And then I think it was when we had the Academy Awards when they invited everyone who had been a recipient to be on stage, and I saw him there. And I had not seen him 40 years, I don't know. And he said, "Come here." So he came over and he took me over to his wife, Veronique. And he said, "Veronique, I want you to meet my son." It was really, that was heartwarming. It was fun. And we never saw each other again after that.
Well, so many people got Oscar nominated. Clarence Brown for Best Director, Best Picture it was nominated for, Jane Wyman, and Best Cinematographer.
A lot of nominations.
Well, and you got a special Oscar, didn't you?
I did. I got a special. And when you look at the pictures that were nominated that year, it was Great Expectations, It's a Wonderful Life, Best Years of Our Lives, of course, coming right after the end of World War II, was a natural and did win most of the awards during that time. But there were a lot of, I think, I forget, it was an English picture. Laurence Olivier had something that was, nominated at that time. So it was a big year.
Your relationship in the movie with Jane Wyman, boy, she was mean to you. What was she like?
She was the one person I did keep in touch with afterwards. And when I was living in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and she was up in the Napa Valley making that series that she was in. So we spent a lot of time together. I'd go up and visit with her. And so she was a sweetheart.
How nice that is. Well, the film, when it came out, was so popular. I know, like you had mentioned, that because of the earlier start, there was a lot of money already against it. So even though the film was hugely successful and made a profit, it could have made a lot more had Spencer Tracy's version of it not happened. Didn't they shoot a lot of footage already in Florida that they used in your film?
No, I don't think they used any footage from 1938. This was all new. I think Technicolor had improved, and there were all sorts of the sound had improved. I think they just cashiered the other stuff.
Well, that's good to know because I've read that they used footage like that, so I'm glad you could set it straight. That's great. It was beautifully photographed too, and the feeling, the atmosphere, it's very special still. So congratulations.
It did win the cinematography award.
Best color cinematography back then too, and it's so lush and beautiful too. There's a book too that I'd like to hear about.
My Life in the Final Days of Hollywood. People had asked me for a long time, says, you were in Hollywood during the golden years. You were at MGM when it was really at the top of its game, and it was top of the world. And you had all the people there, from Elizabeth Taylor to Frank Sinatra to you name it. They were all under contract there. and you went to school with Elizabeth Taylor, and you went to school with Margaret O'Brien, and that's so, you know, write it. So it took me a year, and I did complete it, and it's out, and it's on Amazon, and
I'll buy a copy.
okay.
It took you a year or more to write the book, or what was your writing process?
It took about a year because, you know, I'd spend some time, and then it's interesting when you really put your mind to it, the things that you can recall. And I think everybody could do that, and I recommend it for people to sort of recreate their lives a little bit. And it was fun. I enjoyed it, and it was amazing some of the things I remembered.
Thanks for watching the show. I'm RJ Word. You already know my dad, Rob, because you were just watching an episode and you stuck around.
And you know what's interesting is I'm sure you see RJ's name in the credits all the time. Well, he and I now are going to do something together where you can see both of us instead of...
Well, actually,
You can't see either one
you
of
can't
us.
see either of us. It's a podcast.
But you'll hear him.
Exactly.
Podcast, it's new for me, but I'm excited about it. We're going to be having a lot of interviews with Western personalities like we've been doing for the past 11 years right here on A Word on Westerns. But now it's A Word on Westerns podcast.
You know, that's more than a third of my life. We've been doing this show for more than a third of my life.
He was in high school when we started at the Autry in 2013, and he used to skip class to come and work as a PA, and now he's bossing me around. Can you believe that?
He was a cool dad, and he takes instruction very well. I'm very proud of him. But our podcast is every Monday.
Every Monday a new one drops. Isn't it up all the time then, and you can access it anytime?
You can access it anytime wherever you find your podcasts or on our new channel, A Word on Westerns podcast.
Sounds good to me.
The links are... I'm going to put it over his face.
He did graduate, too.
Click here.